Jay Shear.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear,
business consultant.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear Business Consulting.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jay Shear with Jay Shear Business Consulting. We build solid foundations for service-based businesses to grow and scale and achieve the results and success they deserve. And you've joined Business Minds Coffee Chat. What do astronauts, Olympic champions, and Nobel laureates do differently that allows them to achieve at such a high level? Is success a learned skill? Well, you're about to find out. On today's episode, we talk about the elements of success, behaviors of high achievers, the power of mentors, and more. Our guest is a speaker, coach, educator, author, and a podcast host who has spent years researching the secrets to success found in extreme high achievers. She's the Chief Learning Officer and Assistant Professor of Education and Anesthesiology at Weill Cornell Medicine. In 2021, she was selected as one of 30 people worldwide for the Thinkers 50 Radar list and recently won the Thinkers 50 Distinguished Achievement Radar Award, ranking her the #1 emerging management thinker in the world. She's a regular contributor to academic journals as well as Forbes and Psychology Today, where she writes about optimizing success. Please welcome the woman who's helping others improve and unlock their own potential, Dr. Ruth Gotian. Ruth, it is so great to see you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, Jay, I'm so excited to be here with you.
Wonderful. Well, as we were talking before the cameras were rolling, we are about to delve into one of my all-time favorite topics, talking about high achievement, talking about success. So I'm really looking forward to this. So let's dive right in. I thought a good starting point for us would be to get a better understanding of your backstory. And so take us back a bit. When did you first realize that not only you were going to pursue a path to academic excellence and academia and educating and teaching, but also where did your interest and your passion for success and high achievement come from?
You know, I always thought that success was for other people. I mean, that really good success, right? The ones you read about, the ones you hear about, the ones you see, the ones who become your role models. I really thought that was for other people, people who were born into the right circumstances. And I sort of watched with some envy as I saw certain people just ascend to great success. And then I ran what's called an MD PhD program for the students who get the dual degree, both an MD and a PhD degree simultaneously. And I did everything there, soup to nuts, from recruitment through alumni affairs, budgets, grants, operations, the whole bit. And Jay, that program has a 3.5% acceptance rate. Wow. So this is the creme de la creme who go to these programs, right? You have a better chance of getting into Stanford than you do into these programs. So I ran that program, and I noticed even amongst this elite group, there were people who would rise to the top. But nationally, we were talking about everyone who was leaving, what we call the leaky pipeline, which is very similar to the conversations that we're having now about the Great Resignation. And I was part of those conversations, but my heart was really at the other end of the spectrum. Those whose work was so unbelievable that they more than made up for those who were leaving. And I kept wondering, how can we create more of those people? How can we inspire and motivate people to become that? So while working full time and raising my family at the age of 43, I went back to school and I got my doctorate. And I studied at that time the most successful physician scientists of our generation. And after I finished my doctorate, I thought I'd be done with research. But you know, when you love something, you just can't stop. I couldn't stop. So I was curious if the 4 elements of success that I found with the physician scientists, if I would find them with other extreme high achievers. So since then, I've been interviewing astronauts and more Nobel Prize winners and Olympic champions and NBA champions and NFL Hall of Famers and CEOs and other just great, great people. And then I wrote the book, The Success Factor. And here we are.
And here we are. I love it. And we're going to be digging into the success factor in much more detail here coming up. I'd like to stay on the topic of your first introduction and passion around high achievement and success. I look back over my own career, and I had a 30 plus year successful corporate career before I started my own business. But there was a point in time, and I know exactly when it happened, when the world of high achievement and success really began to enter my consciousness. And I went all in. I went very, very deep in that area and continue to today. But as you think back, were there periods in your youth where you were exposed to those who were successful, and were you asking yourself certain questions or trying to connect certain dots at that point, or was it not till later?
So I actually met several really influential people throughout my life, but I never made the connection because to me, they were regular people, right? They were either friends of the family, they were family, but they weren't me. I didn't think I had that it factor. And I wanted to know what it takes to develop that it factor. And look, I'm from New York City. I go to Broadway shows, but I'm more interested in what's behind the scenes and what's on stage. What does it take to make that beautiful production? And I've just been fascinated with it. I mean, who else goes back to school at the age of 43 while working full time, right? There has to be that interest, that intrinsic motivation. And once I figured it out, I just couldn't stop. It just became a great addiction to have. And then I tried it out on myself. I became patient zero to find out if it works, if success can be learned. And I quickly realized it certainly can be. And then now I just won't stop talking about it. Anybody who wants to be successful can.
I love that. So I'm not a big believer in putting labels on people or things, but if we were to put a label on someone, and if we were to use that term high achiever, would you label yourself today as a high achiever?
No way. No way.
And why not?
I get asked that. And by the way, I now understand that when I would interview people, I would say, look, you came up on my list as a high achiever, right? You rank as a high achiever. And always they would say to me, I am? And I said, you won the Nobel Prize. If you're not a high achiever, what does that say about the rest of us, right? But what I had quickly learned was that this is the company that they keep. So if everyone around you is operating at this level, you are average amongst that group. And that's why I encourage people to raise the culture of success and excellence within their organization. Because once you start doing that and bringing people together who start doing that, that new baseline, that new average becomes much higher. And the reason high achievers will always deny being high achievers is because they're surrounded by people who are like them, who are achieving things like them, and always realize that there's more to do. They always know that there's something else to achieve. Now, I want to tell you a funny story of what happened during my book launch party.
Okay.
I invited all the people who were in the book, right? So it's the astronauts and the Nobel Prize winners and Olympians and Paralympians and all these people, right? Now, they don't know each other. I know all of them, but they don't know each other. So one of the astronauts, he texts me right before it was a virtual book launch event. So he texted me and he said, will Dr. Fauci be there? Because Dr. Fauci is one of the people in the book. I said, no, he's, kind of a little busy right now. And I said, oh, but this Nobel Prize winner, Dr. Bob Lefkowitz, will be there. And he said, oh, now that's a high achiever. And I'm thinking to myself, you're an astronaut. I didn't know that there's levels of high achiever, right? But this is because everyone around him is an astronaut, so it was no big deal. But he doesn't know many Nobel Prize winners. So it's all relative. It all depends on the company you keep.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? It's
it's hysterical.
It truly is. And as you were describing this, I'm thinking to myself of that saying that a rising tide lifts all boats. So when we're able to create that culture of excellence or of high achievement, that when we're looking to lift others up, that to your point, we just keep raising that bar, and everyone continues to grow as well. And what a beautiful thing to see develop. I love that. So let's talk for a moment, if we could, about the psychology behind high achievement. And the reason why I want to pull on that thread a little bit is I look at some people that are around me that I would look to as being high achievers. And in some cases, they're constantly pushing themselves and they're always looking to achieve that next level and achieve more for a myriad of different reasons. I've had conversations recently with some that never saw themselves as strong enough, let's say, or capable enough. And they were always trying to do that next thing to prove to themselves or prove to others that they could be this person, that they could achieve more. So speak to the psychological side for a moment. And as you study all these high achievers, do you start to see some of that pan out at all?
So yes. So I will first, let me preface by saying I am not a psychologist or psychiatrist, so I don't want to give a false impression. But it really is about the next goal. So what's so interesting is that whenever I interview these Olympians and Nobel Prize winners, et cetera, I always ask them to show me their medals when we're done. And it's not lying around. It's not on display. Only 2 of them had it on display. Everyone else, it's in a box, it's in a safe, it's under the bed, it's in a brown paper bag in the sock drawer, in these random places. And I couldn't understand. I said, how is it not on display? How is that possible? And they said to me, it was never about the medal. It was about the journey. And they said, the medal is a chapter in my life, not the entire story. So they always have another goal, which they are trying to attain. There's always something more that they want to do. And that is what drives them. That is the fuel. They are focused on the current goal, not the 10-year goal, the next goal. And I think that's an important lesson for all of us to learn. We're so focused about where we want to be in 10 years and what we want to do in 20 years. And no, focused on what is next. And then what is the plan to get that to happen?
Powerful, truly powerful. And I think about playing the long game, right, as well as the short game, right? So we almost need to look at some balance there between the two. And but I love the comment about focusing on the journey. It's not the reward itself. And another point that comes to mind as you're saying that is, if we get too caught up, if we tie our identity to that thing, to that award, to that Olympic medal, whatever it happens to be, that once we've achieved that, now what? If that's everything that we believed about ourselves, how do we move forward? So I love the fact that we are looking at the journey here. Yeah. So great.
By the way, that was another fun fact in the launch party. Everyone was talking about where they keep their medals. So that was going on in the chat. And then, I also had close friends and family, and they're like, my sock drawer is not nearly as interesting.
Yeah, mine has a bunch of mismatched socks and that's about it. I love that. So funny. So I'm curious, what is something that you believed about yourself early on that you discovered later wasn't true?
I thought I hated writing. I really thought I hated writing. And my grandmother told me growing up that I was a good writer. Or she said, you're a beautiful writer. And I said, that's a book report like this, right? I mean, I was a little girl and I never thought anything of it. And then I started writing a doctoral dissertation. Still not sure that I enjoyed writing, but I had an amazing mentor, an amazing doctoral advisor by the name of Dr. Marie Volpe, who, by the way, is 85 years old and still advising doctoral students. And she taught me how to tighten up every word. And somewhere along that process, I found my voice and I learned to love writing. And since that pivotal point, I can't stop now. I'm writing all the time for Forbes and Psychology Today and Harvard Business Review. And that's why when I wrote The Success Factor, the words just poured out and people said, I hear your voice, Ruth. I definitely hear your voice here. I didn't think I ever had that voice. And I didn't think I ever had the ability to write, but I'm glad I found it. Now I can't shut it off.
Fantastic. The world is glad that you found it. You've made it a better and brighter place because of that. So I think that's outstanding. So let's transition then to the book itself. So this is your latest book, and it's such a great read. And really, it's a roadmap. When you look at the book, it really is a roadmap or a playbook for anyone that is looking to level up in their personal and professional lives, achieve greater levels of success, as long as they're willing to work for it, right? So this doesn't just happen. You provide the tools. Now it's up to the reader to actually take those tools and apply them. But the great thing is you've backed this up with years of research. So share with us, before we actually dig into the contents of the book and share some of the tools and strategies, what was the process like bringing this book to life? We know that years of research went into it. You interviewed tons of incredible people and selected 61 of them for the book. So walk us through that process of bringing this book to life.
It was fun, and it was exhausting all at the same time, right? So first of all, I work full time. So this book was literally written on the weekends during the pandemic. It was also a safety for me, because early on in the pandemic, I lost my dad. And I knew that I could either curl up into a ball or I can be productive. And I chose to really compartmentalize things. And I knew this was a dream of his as well. So it was just a way of living it out. So I spent my weekend mornings writing this book. And at first it was actually quite difficult because I was so used to academic writing, which the lay audiences don't want to read, right? And I actually contacted a friend of mine, Brad Kane. I said, he wrote a book, Pitchfork Populism. I said, this isn't flowing. I'm never going to finish this way. And he said, well, what's your favorite parts to write? So I told him, I said, I love talking about the 4 elements of success and how to apply them and sharing the stories of all these incredible people. I said, I don't want to do the beginning. That's just like an intro. I want to get to the meat of it. And he said, well, start writing there. I said, I could do that. He said, it's your book. So I started writing it. And then when I finished, I went back to write chapters 1 through 3. And at that point, the words just flowed out. He was so right. And I think that was just an example of how you need to listen to other people and surround yourself with supportive people and people who are different than you. He works in politics, right? I work in academia. So it's very important to have these great people all around you who could give you those pushes and nudges and really help you see perspective. So this is how you write a book on weekends while working full time and getting unstuck.
Incredible. And I'm right there with you about being surrounded by others with divergent ideas.
Yes.
People who can challenge your own beliefs, your own biases, help you gain better perspective, help you pull the lens back a bit and see the truth versus the things that we choose to believe that may not actually be rooted in reality. So I think that's fantastic. And I love the fact that you didn't start with the beginning. I think that's so cool how that began to develop after you had already written the meat of
That's
what
right.
you wanted to deliver. What a great method. So you mentioned about your father, and I can only imagine that this had to have been not only a blessing to be able to get the words out and be able to create this magnificent piece of work, but you also you dedicate this. You mentioned your father at the very beginning of the book, and your father did not have the opportunity to see the finished, published piece of work. How much was he able to, or did he help in either contributing or providing you feedback during the writing process? Was that opportunity there?
No, sadly, he passed away before I ever even got the book contract. Early on in the pandemic, he was in the hospital, and I was sitting by his bedside 18 hours a day. And I had my laptop, because those who know me know that I work best under a certain kind of stress, and I can't just sit and stare out into space. I have to be productive. That's just who I am. So he sees me working on my laptop. And I had previously, when he was in the hospital, I literally brought him my other book, which is a textbook. So as I'm working, he said to me, "Are you getting ideas here for your next book?" And I kept saying, "I'm just trying to keep you alive. There's no place for new ideas." But shortly after he passed away is when I was contacted to write a book, and his voice was just constantly there for me. So he knows that I was passionate about this topic.
Clearly. What an amazing gift. So one of the first things, and we are going to get into the book because I'm so excited for everyone to hear some of the specifics here, but you, in your dedication, I love this, and I want to look at this real quick to make sure I get it right, but you dedicate the book to those who know that impossible simply means I'm possible. What a great opener here. And that's fantastic. How did that come to you, and how does that speak to you?
So I've heard this before, this quote. I don't even know who to attribute it to, but I've heard it many, many times before. And there's certain things in your life that once you see and once you hear it, you cannot unsee or unhear it. And that is one of those things that whenever someone said to me, "No, it can't be done," all I heard was "not yet." And this started way, way back. I wasn't even conscious of this, but people are bringing it up now that the book is out. They're bringing up all these stories of all the times in my life when I had done that. And one of those times was when I was in 5th grade. I was 10 years old. And at that time, recess was broken down by gender. The boys got to play soccer. The girls were in a corner trading stickers. We had albums. And if you had googly eyes to your stickers, that was like a good deal. So I was not so interested in the high commodity sticker exchange. I had this excess energy. I really wanted to kick a ball around. So I approached my teacher, and he said, "Well, girls can't play soccer." And that was during the week. So that Friday I went to the New York Public Library. Now remember, we didn't have cable. There was no girls playing soccer on television. This was the world he knew. Girls didn't play soccer. But I went to the library, and I took out every single book that had pictures of girls playing soccer. And that Monday morning, I put a 2 or 3 foot pile of books on his desk. And I said, "I would like to revisit that conversation about girls not being able to play soccer. Here is proof that we can." He had no choice. I had to play. That's really when someone tells you no, it really means not yet. When someone says it's impossible, it really means I'm possible. I'm the one who has to make the change. And that's just one of many, many stories. And the book has not my stories, other people's stories of where they did that same exact thing.
So fantastic. I love that. So let's dig right into the book. So the book it's broken down into 3 primary parts. You've got high achievers and success, the 4 elements of success, and then optimizing your success. So let's start with what defines a high achiever? And then let's just briefly talk about the three parts with an emphasis on those four elements of success.
Yeah. So the first part of the book is really to create a business case of why people should be high achievers, why organizations should want to hire and retain and promote high achievers. So that's really the business case for it. And then you're right. The second part is the four elements, and the third part is how to implement it. Now, in terms of the definition of success, it'll change based on whom you ask. And that was part of my early research. But the definition that I used was that this is not people who are famous. There are a lot of people in the book, you will definitely recognize their names. And there are some people who you may not, but they fulfilled certain requirements, right? It's not about being famous. I don't have the Kardashians in there. These are people who, one, had to create a paradigm shift in the way we do things, think about things, process things, some sort of change, right? Paradigm shift in the way we do things. That's one. Okay. Number two, they are notable for the work that they've done. Someone other than the people they live with know about this and know about its impact. This is work that had impact. And third, as they ascend, they are bringing others up with them. Those are the three.
Wow.
That's what makes someone successful.
Incredible. So all this research went into it. How were you able to narrow the field down to the 61? I mean, you talk about the criteria that you just outlined. Is that what it was? Were there others that were very difficult to not put into the book, to not tell their stories? Is that coming out in volume 2 in a year or two?
No, look, you always want to get more stories than you have room for, because at the end of the day, you really want to create a diversity of perspectives that you're introducing, right? So I feature 4 astronauts in the book. I don't need 10 astronauts for anyone to understand the point that I'm making. 4 is more than sufficient. I have about half a dozen Nobel Prize winners. That's enough. I actually had other physician scientists, but then it literally came down to you have enough from the state of Texas, So certain ones had to be pulled out. I didn't need Olympians in all the same sports. I needed to make sure there was winter and summer and Paralympians. So I needed a balance. And this was really the reason some people were not included was because of the balance issue that we needed.
Fair enough. So let's talk about what you found. What were the commonalities? What were the traits that became very clear to you that were woven amongst all of these high achievers?
Yep. So what was very clear to me, first of all, was that you cannot copy somebody's habits, right? You always hear about, they read all these books, they wake up at 5 a.m., they make their bed. That's fabulous. But if you only go to bed at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning because you're a night owl, you're not going to start waking up at 5 a.m. Who are we kidding? But what we can do is we can emulate mindsets. We have to think critically about what is it that they're doing and how can we relate that to our lives. So I found out that all of them do the same 4 things, have the same 4 mindsets, which means an astronaut is just like an Olympian, right? So the first one is they are intrinsically motivated. It's not about finding your passion. It's about finding your calling, why you were put on this earth, right? What is it that gets you out of bed in the morning, and the reason you can't shut your mind off at night, the reason you are so pumped, the reason when there's a challenge, it's not the end of the world. You know that there's something you can learn from that. It's not about the awards, the diplomas, the recognitions, the promotions. That's what we call extrinsic motivation. That's when other people are judging us, and that is never sustainable. Those are usually the people who burn out or fail out. But when it's intrinsic and it comes from within, there is nothing stopping us. And we just need to find ways to put fuel on our internal fire. So that passion, that purpose, that intrinsic motivation, that's the first one. The second one, the second element of success is that once you've figured out your intrinsic motivation, you are going to outwork everyone. And I don't mean you're going to work 18-hour days. Quite the opposite. You're going to work smarter. not harder. So that means you're going to leverage your peak performance hours. The way you're going to approach challenges is very different from the rest of the world. You never question if you're going to come a challenge. High achievers don't question that. They just focus on how to overcome the challenge. What is the strategy that I haven't thought of yet? I spoke to Devin Harris, one of the original members of the Jamaican bobsledding team. Remember that movie, Cool Runnings?
Yes.
That was about Devin and his teammates. And I said, Devin, you're from a tropical island. You're going to ice and cold. Like, do you even own a winter coat? And I said to him, I said, Devin, did you ever question if you would get to the Olympics? I mean, you haven't even seen a bobsled till you got to the Olympics. He's like, no, we never questioned that. It wasn't a question of if, it was a question of how. How am I going to get there? The third element of success is that really strong foundation, which you're constantly reinforcing. What you did early in your life, you're going to do later in your life. It's those same basic skills. Neil Katyal argued 45 cases before the Supreme Court of the United States. Most lawyers don't argue one. He's argued 45. I said, Neil, how do you prepare for these cases? He said, oh, it's simple. Ruth, I do 3 things. First, I prepare a binder with every question I might get asked, and I make sure I know the answers. And I bring that binder to the courtroom and put it right on the table in front of me. I have never once in 45 cases opened that binder. But preparing it and having it with me prepared me for the trial. That's the first thing. The second thing he did was he prepared moot courts, simulated courts, right? Like mock trial. He said he's done that for every single case before the Supreme Court. He used to do 15 of them to prepare. Now he does 5 before he goes to the courtroom. 5. He never stopped. He didn't say, oh, I've done 45. I don't need to do this anymore. And last but not least, if you are Neil Katyal's children, instead of a bedtime story, you get the opening arguments of the case before the Supreme Court. And he said, if he can explain it to children, he can explain it to the court. Same foundations. He never stopped doing them just because he became successful. And last but not least, that fourth element of success, you've heard of Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and Mark Cuban. They're notorious for reading 3 to 8 hours a day. It's not reading that made them successful, right? That's a habit. It's the mindset of being open to new knowledge, of understanding that I don't know what I don't know, and seeing where the gaps are in people's understanding and then working on that, because that's innovation. So sure, you can read books like Mark Cuban, Bill Gates, and Warren Buffett, but there's so many other ways that you can open your mind up to new knowledge. You can read articles, you can watch webcasts and LinkedIn Lives and listen to podcasts such as this one. Hopefully we're talking about some really good stuff here. LinkedIn learning courses, right? And of course you talk to people, because all of the high achievers surround themselves with a team of mentors who believe in them more than they believe in themselves. Those are the 4 elements of success.
Wow. So for someone who is looking to find greater levels of success, that want to learn from these high achievers so they can implement some of this in their lives, and they're reading through the book.
Yeah.
As we talked about, this really is, it's a playbook, it's a roadmap.
Yeah.
And with most roadmaps, right, we have to follow a logical progression here. So if someone says, well, I'm looking for the hack or the shortcut, can I skip let's say the 4th element? Walk us through, let us know why it's so important that you can't skip the steps and that you need to follow them in the order of what you wrote.
Yeah. So you really need to do all 4, because if you don't, you're actually just shortcutting yourself and your potential. You have to do all 4, because this is what all of the extreme high achievers do. But if you're going to start with 1, I would first recommend that you figure out what your calling is. Figure out what is your intrinsic motivation, because once you figure that out, no one's going to have to push you to work hard, right? It's like those, how many of us learned instruments growing up? And certain people, if you got to practice 20 minutes a week, that was considered a lot and it was painful. And other people just couldn't wait to practice. It was just an extension of their hands, right? So you want to be that person that it's not work for you. So if you figure out your passion, everything else will follow. But you must do all four of those things. But as I say that, I realize that, Jay, what works for you may not work for me because we're different people. So what I did for each one of those elements, and this is based on the best practices in adult learning, is that I created a buffet of options so that you can pick and choose any implementation style that works for you, and realize that not just what works for you may not work for me. What works for me today may not work for me in a year from now. Because when we face transitions in our lives, as we have seen during the pandemic, we start to reevaluate things. And that is a good time. And that's why I say this book is what you keep on your nightstand. If you need to start working on those basic skills again, you can go back to that chapter and say, I've tried this before. It's not having the same impact. I want to try a new way. And there's a new way. There's a whole buffet of options to choose from.
So wonderful. And, when I look at your book and I look at this as a reference guide and something that I will refer to on a regular basis, the first time that I take a look at it, and as I'm reading through it, it has its impact, right? The next time that I take a look at it, I'm a different person, right? I'm changing on a constant basis. I'm consuming new content. I'm learning, right? I'm growing. I'm experimenting. I'm trying different things. So when I pick up the book and read back through one of the tools and pull something else out of it, it's going to have a very different meaning for me. So that's why I think that it's very important to continue to go back to this, continue to read from it, continue to implement on a regular basis. So much great information in here. I want to talk for a moment about flow states. And, I've listened to, as I was researching you and consuming some of your content, you do talk about flow states, and something that you discovered through your research that seemed to also be another relevant theme that came up was how these high achievers get into a flow state and how that helps them. So talk about that for a moment. Why is that so important?
So flow state is really a concept in positive psychology, which is really when you are so focused on what you're doing, you're actually more productive and you're happier. And time just sort of melts away. And you're not tired, and you're not hungry, and you're not thirsty, and you don't need to get up to go to the bathroom, and you're not interested in your social media, and who cares who's texting you. You are so laser focused on what you're doing, but yet you're happy. You're really happy and productive. And you can get more done in flow state than you can out of flow state. And flow state could be for a shorter amount of time. And then I start really talking about, when I talk about the implementation, is how to get into that flow state so that you can be more productive and more efficient, do more in less time, and be happy and content while you're doing it. What a concept, right? What a concept. And this is really what all the high achievers, it doesn't always happen, and it doesn't happen very often, but when it happens, they milk it for all it's worth. And this happens for the Olympians. Really, we talked about Apollo Anton Ono and how he got into flow state, and the scientists and everyone else. It's really about how you're able to get in, how you're able to shut off all of the distractions from the outside world. And God knows we have so many distractions right now. But the book really talks about some ideas of how you can actually do that and work in 20, 25-minute sprints where you actually get things done in these sprints that happen. And then you take a break and then another sprint. It's actually something called the Pomodoro technique. And this is really to help you be more effective, efficient, and content.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. And I want to make sure that everyone that's watching and listening right now understands that there's so many different tools and different strategies in this book. And obviously in the amount of time that we have together, we are just covering, right, just high level. But get into the book, you're going to learn all about these different strategies that you can use and learn the amazing stories of all of these different incredible high achievers. So I want to speak to passion and purpose for a moment. It's kind of the first piece of this that you were talking about. Did you find that in the interviews and conversations with the high achievers that in order for them to find their purpose, their why, that thing that gets them out of bed every day, were they trying lots of different things before they finally honed in on that thing?
Absolutely. Nobody was born with this. Nobody born knowing that they're going to be an Olympic champion figure skater, right? It just doesn't happen that way. But if you think about it, Apollo Anton Ono, the most decorated Winter Olympian in short track speed skating, he was actually a state champion swimmer before he ever became a speed skater. Bonnie Blair actually was a long track speed skater. Same thing, right? It's just they tried different things and they were good at it. But there's a difference between being good at something and loving something. You want to find what it is that you love to do. Dr. Bob Lefkowitz, a Nobel Prize winner who I mentioned earlier, he was a physician. He wanted to be a cardiologist. And then the Vietnam War broke out. And as a physician, you had a choice. You could either go off to war, or you can see if you can get a very coveted spot at the Public Health Service, which in his case was doing research at the National Institutes of Health, the NIH. And he had never really done research before, but he did, and he fell in love with it. 2012, he got the Nobel Prize in Chemistry.
Simply amazing. So as you were completing the research or writing the book, did your life change in any particular way? Did your outlook on life change as you're putting all of this together and listening to all of these different stories and finding the through lines? What was that experience like, and how has that changed who you are as a person?
Dinner conversations at the Gotian table are very different right now because it's always about, listen what I've learned. This is what I found out. We all need to try this. And the kids are like, Mom, enough with the career advice. But it's really, once you see it and once you see that success can be learned, you just want everyone with potential to actually embrace it and leverage it. And that's why I will talk to anybody about it. And that's why I really wanted to get the word out about the success factor, because I do believe success can be learned.
Absolutely.
I'm here to teach it.
And fantastic. And thank goodness you are. So let's speak to the power of mentorship as well. We cannot let this conversation end without talking about the importance of it. And I would also ask that you share with us one or two impactful mentors in your life and how they helped to shape you, or at least help change your trajectory.
Yeah. All of the high achievers surrounded themselves not with one, but with a team of mentors, a whole group of people. So if this is what astronauts and Nobel Prize winners do, I don't know why the rest of us think we don't need them. But we definitely do. And we need a diverse group of mentors so that we can hear these different perspectives, right? Remember, I would have still been stuck on chapter 1 if I didn't talk to Brad Kane about help that he got through his writing process. And he's in politics. I'm not. And do I surround myself with a team? Oh, yeah. I've got physicians and scientists and educators and military and lawyers and business people. The more diverse the group, the better I am for it, because I hear these different perspectives. And actually, one of my mentors, Dr. Bert Shapiro, he gave me such good advice without telling me what to do. And the book, The Success Factor, probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. Because when I first started my doctorate, I was telling him about the project I was thinking of doing. I knew I wanted to work with physician scientists, and I thought I would just try to predict success. And he said to me, Ruth, do something important, not just interesting. And with that one line, it completely changed the trajectory of my work. I was no longer trying to predict success. I was now trying to create success for people.
Wow.
That completely changed everything. And then my other mentor, Dr. Marie Volpe, who I mentioned earlier, she helped me crystallize those thoughts, and she pushed me right out of my comfort zone, because that's where the growth happens. So between the two of them tag teaming, got the research done, continued the research, and wrote the book.
Amazing. And Ruth talks all about mentorship in the book as well. So if you listeners and those that are watching right now, if you're trying to figure out, how do I find a mentor, right? Who would be an ideal mentor for me? Read the book. Not only will you learn all the valuable lessons through all of these high achievers, but you are also going to learn all you need to know about mentorship, how important it is, and what you can do to find the right mentor. So, Ruth, as we wrap up our conversation here, just a couple of things I would love for you to share with us. Number one, what are you adding or eliminating from your life to live more fulfilled and with greater purpose?
Judgy people. It's, I realize that there are a lot of people who they don't do much, but they certainly have a lot of opinions. And these are people who are extremely judgmental. And I used to let all of that stick to me. But what happens is it's like Velcro. It sticks to you and sticks to you, and then it starts to weigh you down. Once you start to learn to not care about their opinions and their eye rolls and the times they're ignoring you or not responding to you, it is the most liberating experience. And you can actually get so much more done. So when they say, let it go, let it go. In fact, I was harboring a lot of the weight from what other people had previously done to me. And another one of my mentors, who actually wrote the foreword to the book, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, he said to me, you got to let it go. You got to let it go. He said, you won't realize your potential until you let it go. And it took a long time, but once I did, I just wish I would have done it sooner.
Yeah, I hear that very often. So can you share with our listeners maybe one tool that you use to let it go? Because it's a process. So what did you do? What was the most helpful for you?
I just realized that they were not paying rent. And as such, they were no longer allowed to take up real estate in my head. Reminded me every day, I reminded myself of that.
Wow. I like that. Thank you. Thank you. That's a great one. I'll definitely remember that one. Thank you for sharing. And also, what challenge would you like to leave our audience with?
A challenge for them?
Please.
I would like you to surround yourself with interesting people and see if there's one new thing that you can learn from them, something you didn't know about before. And now you know about it. And I want you to let that marinate in your head, because you will see when you least expect it, you're going to pull that information out of your memory and utilize it in a new way. Because taking something old and using it in a new way, that's innovation.
Great, great challenge. All right, everybody, take Dr. Ruth up on that challenge. I'd love to hear what you come up with, and share with us all the great places that we can go to consume your content, and obviously purchase your book, which I know is available everywhere, but please share anything you would like in terms of social channels, website, etc.
Sure. So all the social media is just my name, Ruth Gotian. My book, The Success Factor, wherever you love buying books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target, independent bookstores, it is all there. And if you want to know anywhere in the world where you can find it, just go to my website, ruthgotian.com/book. So it's RUTHGOT like Tom, IAN like Nancy /book.
Wonderful. And we are going to be linking to all of your social handles, your website, links to purchase the book, all of that great information right in the show notes here. And Ruth, thank you. Thank you so very much. I'm grateful for you. Thank you for sharing of your experience, of your knowledge, of your wisdom, bringing this book to life and giving us at least a sense of what we can expect as we're consuming the book. I truly appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. And for all of you, thank you so very much for watching and for listening. And please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. We would love to hear what resonated most with you from this episode, and to enjoy more episodes and to learn how Jay Shear Business Consulting can help your business build a solid foundation. All you have to do is visit jshearbusinessconsulting.com. And until next time, keep learning, keep growing, pick up a copy of The Success Factor and apply the lessons learned. And we'll see you on the next Business Minds Coffee Chat. Take care.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear Business Consulting.